If you're putting inflammation in your body, you are reducing your immune system, okay? If you're putting sugar in your body, you are still reducing your immune system. A lot of the things that we do on a daily basis, from controlling our stress to controlling our food, can make a huge, profound impact on your immune system. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Jacque Show. So today we're going to talk about some controversial topics, but it's something that has been a question and really desire of mine to talk about for a while. And the question is, with all the new strains and strands of this, that, and the other thing going around, people are getting down on themselves. Like, man, I thought I had a strong immune system, and now I got this thing, and now I've got this, and now I've got that. Now, what's happening to my immune system? Why am I getting COVID? Why am I getting this? So it's not a matter of okay, if you're healthy, you never, ever get a disease. If you're healthy, it's how fast you process through the disease. Now, there are different instances where we talk about immune stuff where, my three main pillars is we talk about mold toxicity, we talk about gut health, we talk about adrenal health. If those three things are in play and they're not balanced, then your immune system will be weaker, just hands down. It's one of the reasons why I work with those categories. Mold will directly suppress your immune system. Stress, we know stress weakens the immune system. It doesn't take rocket science to figure that out. We're well aware. And for the past 3 years or so, we've been living in a chronic stress state. We've been living with the unknown. We've been living with now gas prices being more than double what they were when a certain somebody took the presidency. There is constant low level stress that we have to deal with on a daily basis. And so if we don't properly adapt to that, our immune system will then be weaker and we will be more susceptible to whatever the disease may be. So when it comes to this newfound idea of if I'm healthy, I should never get sick, that's not necessarily true. We need to be exposed to different bacteria, viruses, microbes, parasites, etc., because we're constantly surrounded by them on a daily basis. There's nothing we can really do about that. And when we think about it, when we acquire these infections, these pathogens, these things that don't technically belong in our body, it gives our body kind of like a fire drill. When we were in school, we always had these fire drills because we turned the fire alarm on, boom. We were like, okay, we need to get in a straight line over here. Don't rush, don't push. We're going to go out this door, so on and so forth. And it was routine, right? If we get exposed to a new siren, if you will, a new fire drill in a new location, well, now we have to learn how to defend against it. Now we have to learn how to properly prepare for it. So if we have this new virus that comes and it hits us, we've never freaking seen it before. Well, now it's a fire drill. It's a rehearsal. We got to figure out how to manage that particular pathogen. Afterwards, we then store those antibodies that are produced. We already know, it's in the back of our brain, hey, listen, I already know that if this happens again, I'm going to use these guys because these guys are what got you to be able to overcome this to begin with. This is known as your naturally acquired immunity. Okay, it's an active immunity. You actively received the infection and you actively overcame it. A synthetic version of that, a medicalized version of that they've been trying to use and trying to say is the best thing in the world is the vaccination. It is trying to mimic the body's natural response and does a really shitty job of it, and always has done a really shitty job of it. You can't mimic this. You can't mimic God's design. It's not going to work. You don't know the intricacies. You don't know about the subconscious. There's so many levels deep on that. But that's also why with these synthetically derived immune markers, we only get a fraction of it, or we get this false alarm, I don't know, maybe this is what this is. Man just tried to throw this in my body. I got to try to figure this out, and maybe I'm okay. Maybe I overcame it. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. But the best way to be able, and the research shows, is the best way to beat and overcome an infection is through natural acquisition, an active acquisition of the infection. Doesn't mean there will be no symptoms. It means you will recover. And however strong your body is through that will determine how fast you overcome the disease. All right. They did a study, and I don't think I have the book up here, but it's I think it's called the Chronic Stress Crisis. And they went in, and it's not very humane to do this, but I think it was amazing because why not? They went after prisoners and they measured something called secretory IgA. Talk about it all the time, especially on your stool test, because it's one of the easiest ways to see it. Secretory IgA, for those who don't know, IgA, immunoglobulin A, is an antibody that is produced in the mucosal lining of the body. Very important to know about. Why? Well, because when we're talking about respiratory viruses and we're talking about what we've been trying to overcome for the past 3 years, I don't even know how many years it's been. When we talk about first acquisition of an outsider, it has to come across the nose and the throat. Guess what's there? Mucus. Guess what else is also there? Secretory IgA. So when secretory IgA is released and secreted through the mucosal cells, that goes after and attacks the crap out of these viruses, okay, or these bacteria or these parasites that come in. But what they did is they did a pre-test of what these inmates' secretory IgA looked like, and then they gave them a parasite. And they found out that people in the same environment but different secretory IgA, right? They found out that the people with high levels or normal levels of secretory IgA kicked the parasite out. Yeah, they had some digestive distress, but it was basically just like food poisoning to them, and it kicked out the parasite, the next day. They were good. I think it was like 24 to 48 hours. Don't quote me on it. It's been a while since I read the book. I usually read it on every flight that I go on. But the point is, the people who had a healthier immune system did still have symptoms, but they kicked it out. Okay. Then the people who had low secretory IgA took a very long time to process through the infection. Okay. Now, how do we build this active immunity? This is one of the biggest stressors. If I can speak candidly from the heart here, one of the biggest stressors is allowing our kids to come in contact with dirt, debris, germs, cough, cold, sneezes, pollen, you name it. It's a pain in the ass, right? Let's just call a spade a spade. Why? Because I know clinically my son has to eat some dirt. I know my daughter has to eat some dirt. I get it. And then they're in Montessori school and they're going to be surrounded, they're going to be playing outside. They're getting bug bites. There's like 50,000 new plants because we moved from Pittsburgh to Arizona. So the vegetation out here, the horticulture is way different than Pittsburgh. The grass or lack thereof is different, or it is transplanted in. It doesn't belong here and still using it. So when we put our kids in these new environments, we now allow from a very young age, and there's tons of research on this, from a very young age, our children are having a lot of dress rehearsals for fighting off infections. We're challenging their immune system. We're causing stress to the body, and the body grows stronger from it. Just like working out. We lift weights, we lift heavier weights. It's more stress on our body. We create more muscle mass so that the next time that we need to lift 225, 315 on bench, boom, you have the muscle that's there to do it, okay? And the same concept of if you don't use it, you lose it. If you're like, okay, I'm going to use my immune system, but then I'm going to sterilize everything. I'm going to make sure that my kids live in a freaking bubble because they had one cold that lasted 3 weeks. It was too much for us to handle. So we're now bubbling our kids. You're prolonging the inevitable. They're either going to get sick when they're younger and build that strong immune system and have a super healthy, awesome adulthood, adolescence into adulthood, or you're going to bubble them, which is what we've been taught to do for the past 3 freaking years. Bubble everything, clean everything, sanitize everything, hand sanitizer this, hand sanitizer that, Lysol this, Lysol that. Look at this microban cleaner. Look, I can put my hand 1,000 times on this doorknob and no germs supposedly freaking transplant on it. It's ridiculous. But it's short-term gain long-term loss in those instances. Okay, and I'm going to slow this down. If we continue as a culture, as Americans, to bubble our children, we will have very weak children when they are older, when they go through adolescence, when they go through adulthood. They will struggle far more. All right? Now, I'm going to put a little funny spin on this. When I think bubbles, I think Bubble Boy from Seinfeld, where George screwed up the Bubble Boy thing. but anyways, I digress, as usual. So again, when we start this off, right, this next statement is probably going to upset a lot of people. And I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. That's kind of what we do here. So on my intake form, right, super in depth. And I had a patient, I think it was last week, brand new patient. She's like, I've never filled anything in so in depth before. And I'm like, well, yeah, I want to know everything about you. I want to know how you were born to how you are right now. I want to know if you were breastfed. I want to know if you were cesarean born. I want to know if you were formula fed. I want to know all of this stuff. What's your vaccination record? Because I want to know if there's damage that could have been done due to those. Okay? Yes, I am anti-vax on this. And Zoom, again, don't shut me down, please. I will start right back up again and keep pushing forward. All right? When we're doing that health history, what is the best way for our kids to develop a proper, strong immune system? This comes from proper prep to pregnancy, okay, which is another thing I work with, infertility, right? Or fertility, because I hate calling it, you're not infertile, you just got something that's going on that's stopping the process from happening, or God doesn't feel like you're ready quite yet. You don't have your stuff or all your ducks in a row quite yet, or you're trying too hard. Not to minimize it, because I know a lot of women will come to me and I know they're trying hard. I'm not trying to minimize this at all. But what we need to start doing as a culture is we need to prep properly for pregnancy. Take care of our bodies. 100 days prior to conception or 90 days prior to conception, that baby has all the toxins, all the gunk, all the garbage that mom has, all in that egg. If you implant or if you fertilize that toxic egg, then you're going to have a kid that's born with more toxins that come out. Okay? Mom passes toxins on to kiddo. And not to put more pressure on moms, because there's plenty of it out there, but I'm just stating facts here. Okay? This comes from proper prep. So people rushing to do IVF or IUI, first fix your body before you go those routes. I'm not saying that you should never do that. There's a time and a place for it, but definitely don't rush to go IUI or IVF just because everybody else is doing it. That's exactly what they want. And kids are being born very unhealthy. You have a 7 times higher risk of childhood cancers due to IVF. Okay, just IVF. Now, what else is important? So proper prep. Make sure mama's immune system is peachy. Make sure that there's no mold toxins in mama before baby is conceived, right? Because we want to dump those toxins out. We don't want to dump them through the breast milk to the kiddo, right? Because there's certain things that can come through and harm the embryo, that can harm the baby, can harm him, post, can cause current candida, cradle cap, yeast infections, etc. A fussy baby, a cortisol driven. There's a lot of things that go into it, but I'm not going to digress too much into that because I want to get this information out there and not overwhelm. And the last two of these things I did, I think I talked too slow. It made me comfortable, but made me uncomfortable at the same time. So proper prep from mom. Mom, build your immune system. Fix your adrenals. Okay, fix your adrenals, because your adrenals are going to have a huge impact on your secretory IgA, which again, we'll see on your adrenal testing, but we'll also see that on your stool test. Remember, if your secretory IgA is very low, then you're not going to be able to pass all that much onto your kiddo. Okay, so if your immune system isn't peachy, then your kid's immune system is also not going to be peachy, which is going to make you more stressed out, which is probably what caused your immune system to be not peachy to begin with. Okay, so see how this cycle goes. You should always prep. Always, always, always prep. I was on that Sex Chicks podcast with Alexa. We talked about this, and all of her friends are prepping for pregnancy. And I think that's the best thing in the world. Like, this should be holy cow. Alexa is listening to me. That gave me goosebumps and chills. Oh, that's right, because I said Alexa. Well, there you go. So I'll make sure I pass this one on to her so she can laugh that I have her in my office, apparently. But anyways, so it starts with mom. Make sure mom is super, super, super healthy. Okay. Dad, make sure you're healthy too. Make sure you have healthy swimmers because you can have different complications come with that. But ultimately, the pressure does fall on mom in terms of the immune system. Okay. Now, during pregnancy, make sure you have proper healthy foods. Don't just binge eat and use the whole phrase, hey, I'm eating for two as an excuse to eat shitty food. Don't just go and eat McDonald's. Don't go and eat, I don't know, pizzas and garbage fast food and Uber Eats everything. Eat clean because you're eating for two, but think about that. You're eating for two. You're eating to make your taste buds happy, make your gut super ticked off, which is then going to make your baby kick, fuss, and be angry, and then have a high tendency of food sensitivities when it comes out. Because the more food sensitivities mom has, the more food sensitivities the kid has. So again, not to add any more pressure, but this is the proper way to do this. Now, say you go through, we're ready to give birth, and all of a sudden you get the word that you have to have a cesarean C-section, right? Have to, quote unquote, have to, which I think is bullshit nowadays because they just try to rush it just for ease. And hey, you're taking too long. I know you're laying in an inverted position. Your legs are up in the air and gravity's pulling baby back down, but you should have had your baby by now. So let's induce you. Let's get this thing out, or let's go ahead and cut this thing out because we're going to just treat this as a disease, which is what medicine does. It's what medical doctors do. Which makes me so mad because pregnancy is such a miracle. It's just man, again, being stupid and trying to think that they know more than the human body does, which you never will. I never will. I will study till I'm blue in the face, but I'm not ever going to understand that until I go off to my next life and I'm able to sit back and say, oh my gosh, these are all the intricacies in life that I missed out on because I didn't know because I was a stupid man with an ego. Oh, I really digressed there. So, all right, you get the news of that, right? So then all of a sudden, baby does not go through the vaginal canal. Baby's going to be born externally, okay? If baby is born externally, then mom is not able to pass immune system off to baby. Baby's born in a sterile environment, in a hospital, and what's going to happen? Baby's going to start already in a deficit of antibodies. It doesn't have immune markers to be able to defend from the outside, okay? It's going to struggle tremendously. Not only that, but the passing through the baby through the vaginal canal also tells mama, hey, you just gave birth. You gave live birth. So guess what? I'm going to allow for your milk to drop down so that way you can feed the baby that you just had. Okay. Why is that important? I know, was it 2 years ago? I don't even know. I lose track of time, but they tried saying that there's nothing natural about breastfeeding and that we shouldn't call it natural, which I'm like, what the hell do we call it? The only way? It's the most natural thing in the world. Like you don't have to do anything consciously it's a natural process. You give birth and you got milk that comes out. Great. Now it can take some time for your milk to drop down and let down so you can feed your kid, which is also something really important that a lot of nurses aren't telling these new moms. And they're putting all this stress on them, which is then that stress is going to deplete your milk stores anyways. And so they're saying, well, you're not feeding your baby's going to die. You need to put them on formula. Therefore, again, bypassing another passing on of mom's immunity onto child. Then they go and they get vaccinated by 47,000 freaking vaccines, put a whole bunch of poison and toxin in their body without a proper immune system, right? Which is why they tell you to do it anyways, because baby immune system isn't strong enough to handle the outside world, but you're putting poison in the fucking body instead. Pardon my French, but I get mad about this stuff. And you're like, well, there we go. Well, the doctor told me that's what I had to do. And then you take baby home, right? You take baby home. You were told that you need to sterilize your environment, make sure there's no this, no that. You have all kinds of antiseptic wipes. You have alcohol wipes. You've got hand sanitizers. You've got hand sanitizer stations in your house. You put baby in a bubble crib. Joking. Don't do that because a bubble crib would suffocate the kid because it would be in a bubble. Anyways, so you go from one sterile environment with a weakened immune system that just got a bunch of poison dumped in the body to another sterile environment where the baby still doesn't have a chance to survive and thrive, right? And we talk about sudden infant death syndrome, which again could be vaccine related as well, but we won't dive into that quite here today. I'd rather bring an expert on, one of my buddies on, to talk about that. But we're constantly going through and we're like, all right, cool, perfect. Now that we had a stressful birth, okay, we didn't have natural vaginal birth, so we had cesarean section. We're now going to be formula feeding our baby. Where is the baby then receiving its immune system? I'll wait. Where? Where? How are you going to make the immune system work? How are you going to give your kid that fighting chance, that competitive edge to get through life, right? We're depriving our kids from birth from natural immunity. It's insane. What's the best case scenario? I know that there are instances where cesarean section, it is an emergency procedure. Emergency procedure. It is not a leisure procedure. Okay? And that's the first time I've said it like that. It's an emergency procedure, not a leisure procedure, which means it's not just like, well, I'm kind of sick of being pregnant right now. I just would like to have my kid. I know I'm not really ready for it. My body is, I'm going to try to use my peanut brain to tell my innate intelligence, like, hey, I'd really like to be normal now and have a baby. So like, let's speed this up. And your innate intelligence is like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Move on. Move along now. Right? So best case scenario, right? We are preparing for pregnancy. We're prepping. Okay. Make sure mama bear is super healthy. Dada bear is super healthy. Ready to go. Make sure your adrenals are good as well, because babies will deprive you of sleep. If you already have adrenal exhaustion, good luck with kiddo. Good luck with postpartum depression. It will be miserable for you. And again, not making light of it. I am being honest about that. Make sure you fix yourself, because healthy people make healthy kids. Okay. So then you go through, you have a vaginal birth, which allows for you to pass through the nutrients and things like that, the antibodies through the umbilical cord into baby. And I mean, shoot, I don't even remember how long. Hoyt, I felt like, was attached to Megan for like a super long time. I got to adjust him and stuff. And Sage, same thing. Born, kept the umbilical cord going and went boom, right to body as well. Why? Skin to skin transfer of bacteria. You want to have a lot of chest time, if you will. Okay. Dads as well as moms. Now, dads, obviously, you are not going to be able to breastfeed if you are a man. And if you're a woman, you do have the ability to, but dads, same thing, just bare chest them, hold them up against you. So that way they can get some new bacteria from you, harmless bacteria from you, onto their skin. So their body can start to acclimate to like, hey, this is our environment. This is what we live in. This is the climate that we have. This is the pollen that we have. This is the dirt that we have around us. It starts to acclimate those babies to be used to that environment. Okay. It's huge. I don't want to say a fish example. Maybe I'll just use a fish example. It's like buying a new fish for your fish tank, right? When you buy a new fish for your fish tank in a pre-existing tank, you don't just take the fish and just bloop, dump the fish and the water into the tank. You will more than likely kill the fish, or at least stress it to death. You put it in first, allow the temperature of the water to meet the temperature of the bag. You can dump some of your water into that bag so that the contents can kind of mix around a little bit. And then you transplant fish into tank once it acclimates to that new environment. Same thing. Baby was inside in a little water bubble for however many months. You were able to hold out however many weeks, 40 weeks, 37 weeks, whatever. And then boom, you're in an external dry environment. And the body's like, all right, what is this? My lungs have to learn how to breathe. I have to have that proper amount of surfactant to make sure that my lungs are able to transplant the oxygen from outside to inside. And then your body starts to normalize, right? The best thing for our kids to do then is to then get dirty. Okay, get them dirty. Let them play out in the dirt. Let them play in the sand. Don't don't have them play with the cactuses out back, even though Sage and Hoyt do have a tendency to run their little cars into them, and I have to clean cactus thorns out. I think they're called thorns. I don't know. I'm still learning the terminology too. But either way, get them dirty. Allow them to be exposed to this stuff, okay? This is why bringing them to like playgrounds, to social gatherings, meeting other kids. This is why I feel like immunity has been so weak recently, is because I don't want to say back in the day, but when we were born and when our parents were born, we had kind of a tribe of people around us, right? We had sisters that were close. We had family raising family. So there was a lot of us that were all in one environment together, which means that was, 8, 10, 15 people who are all rubbing off different bacteria onto our kids, which is allowing our kids to then become stronger, right? Their immune systems to become stronger. So same thing they'll say with dogs too, is surround your kids by dogs. Dogs are dirty, okay? Dogs can pass things off to the children. I know our son got a parasite from our dog that we had to rid the body of. But again, it's it was another opportunity for Hoyt's body to overcome a pathogen at a very young age. And I'm super grateful for that. It was a pain in the ass when it was going on, but I'm grateful for the opportunity for him to now have been stronger from getting rid of that parasite, right? So with that acquisition, or with those acquisitions of the invaders, the pathogens, then the body's able to be stronger. So then you're allowing the kid from a very young age to have exposure to pathogens and toxins, okay? Viruses and stuff that are out there. If you have chickenpox, you can still have chickenpox parties. I'm pretty sure they're still legal unless the government tells us they're not, which is ridiculous. You have those things that go on. Then they go into school, and then they're playing in the dirt, and then they're playing sports, they're sweating. So this is how the more germs we come across, the stronger our immune system is, which is the exact opposite of what they tell us. Okay, they tell us that we need to fear every single germ, microbe, everything that's out there, and if you don't fear it, we're going to make you fear it, and we're going to make you feel as though your body is completely incapable of handling itself in this environment, right? So again, going back to this whole immune system thing, right? Where obviously, you know what I do for a living. Our kids still get sick. It sucks, but I know that 10, 15, 20 years from now, they're going to have kick butt immune systems, right? I'm grateful for that opportunity. Same thing with me. If I come across a new bacteria, or I come across a new infection or new virus that I've never seen before, that I've never felt before, I don't think that I'm not going to get it. I'm usually one of the last people that do get it. But when I do, I process it within like 12 to 24 hours. Like, it's really quick. Boom, done, out. Might be tired for like a day or two after. And there are certain things you can do to feed your immune system, make sure it stays strong during those times. But if you have that proper level of secretory IgA, okay, that immune system, then these things aren't that bad. They're not something that you need to fear. It's just like, okay, it's just another dress rehearsal. It's another opportunity for me to come across this and keep some antibodies in my storage tank just in case I come across this guy again. Or a variant of this guy again. Because if you code for the virus and you're like, oh, I've got antibodies for all of them, and you come across one that's like 98% the same, where somebody got a vaccine for it, they're gonna be like, oh shit, I came down with it. Versus, hey, I already had exposure to it, so this will take me 2 seconds to get through. It's going to be easy, right? So what then is going to also determine how our immune system functions? So we talked about the stress response. Now, kids, yeah, they can be under a lot of stress, whether it is domestic, like physical stress or abuse, or the way the parents are talking to their kids, or the lack of sleep. Lack of sleep is a huge thing with kids too, where they don't want to nap. My kid is one of them, doesn't want to nap in the afternoon, even though I'm probably going to try to force him to today. Wish me luck, pray for me. But the napping, the sleeping is going to be really big for a kid to be able to rejuvenate, recover, release that growth hormone, have that normal anabolic response, right? Also, feed your kids really good food. Feed yourself really good food. If you're putting inflammation in your body, you are reducing your immune system, okay? If you're putting sugar in your body, and I don't care if it's cane sugar or organic coconut sugar, whatever, sugar is sugar. If you're putting it in your body, you are still reducing your immune system. So think about that. A lot of the things that we do on a daily basis, from controlling our stress to controlling our food, those two things right there can make a huge, profound impact on your immune system. And then when you do get sick, do not eat the sugary foods. Do not eat the ice cream. Don't go and grab a pizza full of carbohydrates that convert into glucose that then feed the infection. Right? Don't do those things. So these two things just by themselves should allow for you to feel empowered whenever it comes to your next cough, cold, or sneeze. You shouldn't fear it. If you fear it, you will allow that thing to stay a lot longer. A lot of these things that we come across have a natural half-life. They get out of our body in a certain amount of time. Even if we don't do anything at all to help, they're usually gone. Strep is one of them. It's usually self-limiting. It usually goes away in about 7 days unless you mess with it. All right. If you try treating it with antibiotics, two things happen. You either ride the curve of it being down. We have the symptoms like, oh, shoot, I think I have strep throat now. It's active. And by the time you go and get a script to get filled for some antibiotics, the strep is also starting to go down. And then what will happen is if you piss it off and you cause it to mutate, then you tend to drag it out for another week or another 2 weeks, or you need another round of antibiotics. And you're like, oh, that strep throat is mean. No, it's not. It's your lack of immune system that you're poisoning with antibiotics, which is then going to damage your gut, which is going to reduce your good bacteria. And your good bacteria is what is going to create your secretory IgA in that mucosal lining, right? One of the bacteria is Akkermansia muciniphila, the creation of your mucosal lining. If you don't have any of that particular bacteria, then your mucosal lining is going to be basically like a barren desert in Arizona. It's not going to have that proper immune function. So we need those good bacteria. We need to stay the hell away from antibiotics. This is kids included. Antibiotics can really mess up your kids. So it really has to be something very severe for you to be able to want to give your kids antibiotics. And don't tell me freaking ear infections, because if you tell me ear infections, I'll virtually slap you through this microphone here, because ear infections most of the time are viral. So if you're getting antibiotics for bacteria for a virus, that should be considered medical malpractice, because they're giving you something that's going to make your immune system weaker, even though it's not going to be getting to the bottom of the cause. Okay. I did a TikTok on this. Reduce your sugar, reduce your gluten, reduce your dairy, get adjusted. Okay. Do anything else but go and get freaking antibiotics. Go use some silver. Go use some colloidal silver, some ACS silver spray or silvercillin spray from the store that I have on Instagram. Go do something like that so that you can kill this thing off. But antibiotics are not it. In fact, they have said many times that antibiotics need to be gone. I think the creator, it was penicillin or something like that. The guy who created penicillin didn't really want to create penicillin. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to figure out the exact quote on it. They feared whoever made it feared the use of penicillin, because then it knew that if it wasn't used for strategic purposes, like, oh my gosh, I really need to use this or else I'm going to die, it's then going to become mainstream. And what they feared was that it was going to be so commonplace that people can go and buy it over the counter and try to kill it themselves, and they don't know how to properly dose it. Okay. Which is basically what's happening now. If you have multiple rounds of antibiotics, your doctor's like, oh, no, just take these and we'll figure it out. We'll figure out how to get your immune system strong afterwards. But they never like, hey, take these antibiotics, but you're probably going to want to replenish with some probiotics and some prebiotics. Make sure you avoid these sugars. Make sure you eat these fibrous foods. Get these starchy vegetables in there. They don't do that. Would it take me 5 seconds to say that? 5 seconds? Maybe just print out a pamphlet and say, here, if you're taking this antibiotic, it kills these specific strains. Here, take that. Right? Double dip, docs. Double dip, give them an antibiotic and give them a prescription probiotic if you need to. I don't care. At least educate your patient to know that what you're doing is killing the good in their gut. And you need to replenish that. Otherwise, the bad will continue to grow. Okay? So again, immune system. Make sure that you are packing your immune system full of nutrients. Don't poison your body. Don't make your body excessively toxic. Otherwise, again, your immune system will shut down. And remember my 3 pillars, right? We talk about mold toxicity. Mold toxicity will absolutely crush your immune system. Okay. Signs of immune system that have gone haywire: skin issues, okay, rashes, things like that. That can also be a sign of mold toxicity. Asthma, allergies. Means your immune system can't really tell the difference between things. You can have an excessive histamine response. Some of it can be genetic, sure. But again, if we have these constant threats, this constant lowering of our secretory IgA, then we're never going to be able to get ahead of this. Okay. So if you're like, man, every time I go into my house, I always get coughs and colds. I feel terrible. I don't know what's happening. And real life, I hope that the person who bought the house that we were renting doesn't listen to this, but something was up with that old house that we had. I tested it for mold. No mold like at all was found in the house. However, when we went back, all right, we had to like bring our stuff in. I think there must have been like a gas leak. I don't know. I have no idea what it was. But when my wife and I, Megan and I, would go into that house, we would get pissed in like 3 minutes of being in the house. And then we would have headaches. We're like, what in the world is going on? I have no idea what's going on in this house. All right. So again, it could be mold, could be gas, could be heavy metals. All of these things, the environmental toxic load will then weaken our immune system, right? So first pillar, make sure you don't have any mold or anything like that in your body or in your house. Otherwise, your immune system will never be strong. And I mean it. It will never be strong. Okay. Number 2, we go past mold toxicity, we go into gut health. gut health is definitely going to be your primary. That's where the majority of your immune system is going to be anyways. It's going to be how you actually perceive stress, because we said stress is going to weaken your immune system. It's going to lower your secretory IgA. But when your gut bacteria in your body are abnormal, then our perception of stress is going to be heightened. So we can get upset. Like my phone's ringing right now. My sister's calling me, which I'll give her a call back when I'm done here. But if I look at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, my sister's calling me. Then all of a sudden, boom, I'm like, what the heck is she calling me for? I'm so angry. I don't know why she's calling me right now. How dare she call me on a podcast and blah, 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 blah. And you just start running with these negative emotions, right? Your perceived stress is heightened. It's a lot higher than where it should have been and than where it should be. So then that stress is then going to continue to weaken our immune system, and we keep that perpetuating cycle going. So when I talk with my patients, I mean, I work with a lot of patients who don't really pay attention to the news, which is a good thing. But first thing I tell people to do is, for the love of God, stop watching the news first thing in the morning, the last thing at night. Why? Because first thing in the morning and last thing at night, your body is still in that dream phase. Your subconscious mind is so malleable, it will absorb what you put into it. Okay, that's why we talk about people getting up early. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get my prayer time in. I'm going to do some meditation. I'm going to do some journaling, some gratitude work, some auto-suggestion, some manifestation talk. Always suggested first thing in the morning, last thing you do before bed. Why? Because it works. What you put into your mind, what you feed your mind is crucial at those 2 points. Okay, if you feed yourself cortisol first thing in the morning, good luck with the rest of your day. If you feed yourself cortisol, last thing you do before bed, good luck sleeping, good luck the next day. You will also be craving carbs the next day. I promise you. And if you're like, man, I always crave carbs. Well, you could be in a catabolic state where you're constantly stressed out and your body's craving that glucose because you have blood sugar dysregulation, insulin resistance that's causing your body to be incapable of handling that. Okay, I digressed a little bit again. So talking about mold toxicity, talking about gut health, right? Last thing then is mold toxicity, gut health, stress in the adrenals. Get those things balanced so that way you have that nice, healthy immune response. Okay. Do not fear. And I sound biblical. Do not fear. Don't fear the outside. Don't fear your environment. Okay. God put the most amazing healing power inside of us, whether we want to believe it or not, doesn't matter, because our innate intelligence is smarter than you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can try to purposely mentally sabotage yourself into creating yourself your own manifestation of sickness, but that's up to you. Use your mind, use your subconscious mind, that power inside, to regain your control of your thoughts and emotions. And if you're having a hard time maintaining proper thoughts and regulating your emotions, then test yourself for mold toxicity, test yourself for gut health, okay, test your microbiome, and then test your stress and adrenals. Because our body can only handle the stress so long before the systems start to break down. Okay, if we're like, hey, I eliminated these stressors, I'm doing great, I'm doing my breath work, well, great, cool. But what did you do to get your adrenals to come back? So it's great that you did breath work, it's great that you eliminated the stressors, but we need to nurture your environment again. Okay, if you're like, great, I stopped eating all the gluten and stopped taking all the antibiotics, well, did you replenish what you broke down? Right? It's like having a grocery store and you're like, oh, I got all of the groceries out of the grocery store, we're good. Cool. But then did you replenish the grocery store with more groceries, healthy groceries? No? Okay, well, it's not going to work. Right? And we get into this cycle, and I see this in the spiritual world as well, where we find these stressors, we accept them, we understand them, and we're like, okay, bye, go away. But you never fix the void that it was in to begin with. So we just keep gravitating more of the same sickness, more of the same illness. We're like, oh, I don't fear COVID anymore. Cool. Wait till Bill Gates tells us the next thing to fear. And then what's going to happen? You're going to fear that one because you're told to fear that one. So if we can reverse that, empower you and be like, cool, I'm prepping for the next pandemic. Awesome. It's not awesome when I say it out loud, but theoretically speaking, we need to start taking care of our health now before we lose it, or before we're told that we're going to lose it. You know, we were told as the unvaccinated that we were going to have a dark and sick and deathly winter. Thanks, Joe Biden. That didn't happen. I'm good. We're good. My unvaccinated friends, we're good. And all the research is coming out now that, the vaccine is now causing heart problems and blood clots and all that stuff. Like, oh, cool. So all the stuff we've been saying for the past couple of years has been true. Cool. You know what else I've been saying? Work on your immune system. Work on it. Start doing those 3 pillars I talked about. It's not difficult. You just have to find somebody that you trust to do it. And if you don't have anybody that you trust, then reach out. DM me on Instagram. I'm always responding back on this thing. I hate that I have to, because I feel like every doctor should know what I do. I shouldn't be the only one that I know that does this, except for a couple of the docs that I've trained, right? I shouldn't have to have that stress on me, because that stress is something that I have to deal with. Empathetically speaking, I'm a huge empath, so I absorb what you tell me. When you're like, oh, my doctor told me that's all in my head, then I'm crazy, or there's nothing that I can do, then I absorb that. I get emotional. I'm like, this is ridiculous. How many more doctors? Because I work with patients internationally. Like, I hear this everywhere. I'm like, what are they teaching these docs in school? Is it literally just plug and chug? You come in with this disease, I'm going to give you this diagnosis code to the DSM-4 or DSM-5 is going to tell me I need to give you this medication. If you don't fit this mold, then I can't technically give you this medication, but I can't tell you to do anything. Just come back when it's worse. Right? Anyways, long story long, 40 some minutes later, right? The moral of the story, guys, is that we're in control if we want to be. We are in the driver's seat, and the things that you can do. You don't need me. If you're in a moldy home, get out. If you're eating horrible food, stop it. If you're in a stress state or abusive relationship, end it. Right? Sometimes it can be difficult in those instances, and I'm not trying to broad stroke all of this stuff, but when we start working together, we want to eliminate all those stressors, all those triggers, all those negative things that you're doing, whether it's a food that you're eating or a person that you're talking to. We don't want that interrupting your health and causing you to have a health crisis. Okay? So all of that aside, if you need help, if you need some support, if you need to just know that it's not all in your head and that you're not crazy, just reach out. Just find me. Find me on Instagram, doc_Jacque. Okay, listen to this. Share this with people too, because I think this message is I know this message is massively important. It has to get out there because people need to start knowing that we're not victims of our bodies. We victimize our bodies. We poison it. And we're like, why did you not function right? Well, you put shit in here yesterday, and for the last 40 years, what did you expect was going to happen? Right? It's like putting grease in a cardboard box. And you're like, I'm never going to touch it, never going to touch it, never going to touch it. And you finally pick up the cardboard box, you put a stress on it, and all the grease just falls out on the ground. Ugh, that's disgusting. It stinks. Well, that's what you've been doing to your body. You've been pouring McDonald's grease down your throat for 50 years. And you were like, okay, let's move the bucket. And you're like, oh, I got all these symptoms now. This is horrible. What did you expect? Did you expect your body to be able to keep up with your level of toxicity? You can't. At some point, there's that metaphor, whatever, the straw that broke the camel's back. Eventually, your back will be broken and you will not be able to endure the stress that you put yourself under. So start fixing it now. Start doing these things now so that whenever the next health crisis comes, you're sitting pretty and you're like, hey, just bring it on. This might suck for a week, but I've got time off and I'll be able to spend time with my family and do what I want to do. So love y'all. Thank you for tuning in here today. Hopefully this was a polarizing one. Trying to be as nice as possible, but long story short, again, immunity for us starts when mama is prepping to get pregnant, pregnancy, proper birth, natural if you can, breastfeed the kid so that way you're passing the antibodies off to the kid as well, proper diet, proper nutrition, stay away from vaccines, stay away from antibiotics, and your kid will have the best childhood possible. And throw dirt in the kid's face if you need to as well to boost the immune system, right? Doc Jacque out.